Madison had been a great place to start a family, and on the surface, everything was fine. We had a sweet home in a walkable neighborhood between two lakes, a tight community of friends, and good work. I was teaching yoga and doing photography, and my husband was managing an affordable housing nonprofit. But as we emerged from the cocoon years of raising little children, we were feeling increasingly stifled, even disheartened. My husband was feeling burned out and ready to move on from his work, and we had outgrown our little two-bedroom household. Change was needed, but we were challenged in how to answer this question, what's next? What's next? This is a question we all answer all day long, in mostly unnoticed habitual ways. Through years of contemplative studies, I've learned paying attention to how we're answering this question is critical, because how we answer this becomes the whole of our lives. Our family could have gone the more common route. Find another job and get a bigger house. But my husband and I have a shared desire for more adventurous paths. Couple this with swelling news of climate change, failed leadership, pressures around how to manage screen time with our kids, and a growing cultural polarization. This deeper inquiry was also related to how best guide our girls at a time when their worldviews were so formative and impressionable, then aged 7 and 11. What was going to dominate their internal narrative about their future? What would help them navigate their what's next with relation to the world they would inherit? These are dynamic times, and our children are growing up with a kind of expiration date on life as we know it. Something that science cannot exactly predict what that will look like, but is clear. It will not be what we've known before. How do we increase our resilience and our capacity to meet these unprecedented times? There is a quote that I keep close from Howard Thurman, an author, theologian, and key leader of the civil rights movement from the 1960s. It's been part of my email signature for years so that I see it every day. And it says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Come alive. My husband, Andy, and I met working in Isle Royale National Park and share a love of nature. For me, spending significant time in my 20s in wilderness changed my life and my sense of place in the world. If I could pinpoint a moment I came alive, it was then, living and working in wilderness. So in this context of what's next, and looking for broader answers, we pressed pause. We pulled our kids out of school, sold our home, left our work, and in the fall of 2017, hit the road for a year I named the Radical Sabbatical. We gave ourselves a year to let go of what wasn't working, a year to sit with the unknown and live the questions. We slowed down, prioritized connection with each other and connection to what originally made us come alive and brought us together in the first place, time with nature. This year was divided into 3 chapters, lived via a camper trailer. The first chapter was a trip out west, across the northern Rockies and down the West Coast. We spent time in some of the most celebrated parks, such as Glacier, Yellowstone, the Redwoods, and Joshua Tree. The second chapter, time on the family farm in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, supporting Andy's parents' move off the farm and also contemplating if this was a place we wanted to relocate to. And chapter 3, a trip out west, because it's so glorious. We traversed some places we had missed and adventured into the Colorado Plateau, Yosemite, and further north into the Canadian Rockies. What became of that year will forever be etched in our memories and our hearts. Highlights include being camped on the Pacific, on the Olympic Peninsula, wandering the shores, and watching whales come in to feed day after day. I know that sounds cheesy, but it really happened. We also spent significant time around creatures larger than ourselves, including bison, grizzly, and elk in their homes, sometimes too close. A favorite of mine was snaking our way through the slack canyons of Utah, appreciating the master sculptors of water, wind, and time on Earth's canvas. As with any big adventure came the misadventures too. We got a close look at Lyme disease and its crippling effects. After 3 weeks of my husband suffering through symptoms of fevers, night sweats, and this escalating pain in his joints that walking became difficult, we finally got our hands on antibiotics, and in 3 days it was over. Only 48 hours after that, we arrive in Ventura, California to visit Andy's cousin Gibran on the night the Thomas Fire blew up. We've all seen news of increasingly strong and swift wildfires, but to hear the call for evacuation by bullhorn from a fire truck in the street and to come out and see flames crowning the hills brought the climate crisis to a frightening reality. The Thomas Fire was the largest fire on record that year in California. What we're seeing now is shattering those records. After all of the adventures and the few mishaps, we returned to Madison and all the good things that it offers. It was a powerful, incredibly vulnerable year. As we pressed pause, let go of what wasn't working, and filled that space with a reconnection to each other and this world, it filled the restless void of what's next with a renewed sense of wonder and deep appreciation for what is. But this talk isn't about us and that cool thing we did. It's about the power of pressing pause. We took a large pause, a big moment to get present, to disconnect from the routine, even maddening busyness, and reclaim that feeling of coming alive to influence our answering of what's next. It worked. He got that different, better job, and we have a house that suits us. But life is richer, and not just on the surface. We can all press pause regularly in simple ways, like taking a few moments each day, getting connected to what's around us and grounding into our senses, the sounds, the sights, the smells, without just being on to the next thing automatically. Something as accessible as this can begin to shift our brain in ways that changes perception in a supportive way. Neuroscience is telling us this, and the core of compelling research behind neuroplasticity, this study of how the brain is shaped by our experiences and its ability to form new pathways over the course of a lifetime, is that engaging in practices like mindfulness or other present moment techniques for as little as 10 minutes per day can begin to change our brains and perceptual field in as few as 8 weeks. We have the innate ability to tap resources of resilience, enhanced awareness that positively shape how we're experiencing our lives. One notable piece of evidence about the impact of pressing pause and the brain is about the amygdala. This is the center that produces fear, anxiety, and the general stress response, something I think we're all familiar with. With such practices done regularly, like I mentioned, the amygdala gets physically smaller and is therefore less apt to dominate our perceptual narrative, like our thoughts and our feelings, and therefore less apt to pilot how we're choosing our what's next, Stress response states are natural. They're necessary, but they are not meant to be the architects of our lives. Bridge this invitation of practicing presence, along with engaging those experiences that help you feel alive, another way of saying coming alive. And we have the invitation to build a life in a world that is not based on fear, separation, and scarcity. I asked my oldest daughter, now 14, how the trip changed her. And she said, I had liked the structure and comfort of my life and always knowing what was going to happen next. The trip opened me up to step out of my comfort zone and make myself uncomfortable. Now being spontaneous and not knowing what's going to happen next is something I enjoy. I think this will serve her well as she grows into the world she is inheriting. Stepping out of our comfort zone is another way we get present and helps us to adopt new ways of relating to the world. It also helps us build our capacity to withstand a wide range of experiences, from pleasant to unpleasant, wanted to unwanted. We are all experiencing a radical sabbatical of sorts as I present this in 2020, and not one of our own choosing. COVID-19 has changed everything and plunged us into a great pause from what was, forcing us to sit with the unknown, reckon with structures that are not serving our collective. We are all challenged in how to answer this question, what's next? What do we do with all of this uncertainty and the anxiety, the fear it generates? Something we learned on our trip is that we don't have to know yet. Being willing to accept the unknown and pause with it can be a great teacher, though I know it's not easy. Possibility can be met there. So how do we get through this together? And even turn it into the possibility of something better on the other side, something that makes us collectively come alive in ways we could not have imagined before all of this. Who can say exactly? But I can offer this. I welcome us all to routinely press pause and give our bodies, our minds, our hearts the reset we need. I invite us all to slow down and stay in connection with ourselves and each other. And what makes you come alive? Creative expression, exploring nature like us, growing and cooking food, movement, serving community, whatever those experiences are, reclaim engaging with them regularly, and not for reward or merit, but to simply feel that pulsation of life and the remembrance that it is a gift to be here. It may even invite wonder and fill you with fresh purpose, no matter how bleak this current narrative may seem. When we value real connection, real life experience in real time, it changes everything, including the mindset of how we're answering what's next collectively as a planet. Thank you.